Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is October 9th, 2025, and, well, the week is almost done, and so is this parliamentary session. Next week, they have off. Tensions are going to be really high in the House. You got the politicians that have been doing their job for 3 weeks straight. And you know that they gotta be tired of the charade. So we're going to be taking a look at Question Period when that does come up, but that won't be for another about hour or so. We've got quite a bit of Canadian news to take a look at between now and then, such as the Keystone XL pipeline, how that may be booted back up or maybe not. Then we also have the price of gold reaching all-time highs, like insanely all-time highs. And then we also have a scrum from the Liberal cabinet. The Liberal Party of Canada got together today, earlier this morning, and they had an emergency meeting in Parliament. Kind of interesting. So we're going to take a look at some of the MPs talking about what happened, what's to come, how Canada's making more investments since World War II, and blah, blah. You know what they're going to say. We all know what they're going to say. It's a bunch of fugazi. And yeah, we got a couple other stuff, a couple other clips to take a look at today before we get into Question Period. So all I ask is for you guys to hit the like button and subscribe. It's free to do. It helps grow the channel more than you can imagine. And enjoy the news, because there's going to be quite a bit of it. 4 minutes. I was late by 4 minutes. That's better than 40. You know, it was better than 40 minutes. Yeah, I was on time for once. Ish. Close to being on time. All right, we're starting a little early today, but that's okay. Here we go. We're going to start off with this clip right here of CTV talking about the proposal by Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, to revive the Keystone XL pipeline. Sounds like a bit of an odd idea, apparently, says Mulcair. Let's have a look.
Let's bring in CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Tom, so we hear more talk about pipelines, clearly, too, as Mark Carney, at least in the last little bit, tabling this idea earlier this week of reviving Keystone XL. What do you make of this conversation, too? He's talked about wanting to make Canada an energy superpower, but just as you heard from the Conservative House leader, it's not going to dictate or move away from, again, selling our energy to the United States.
Yeah, trying to resuscitate the Keystone XL pipeline sounds like a bit of an odd idea, frankly. You know, the Americans have had it on the table for a long time, and it's basically there that it got blocked. Trump was there for 4 years previously. Keystone XL was on the table before he came in, and it was still on the table when he left, and nothing had happened with it. Eventually, the proponents said, well, it's just not going through. Now, for Carney to be saying that it could go through, what does that actually mean? As I think that Andrew Scheer, is simply saying the truth when he says, look, if you're not allowed to take more oil out of the ground, what's going to go into that pipeline? And that's the other question. Matt, Canada has a history of exporting our natural resources raw. All of the value-added jobs go somewhere else. If we're going to do this again, we're going to be sending lots of raw bitumen to the Gulf Coast of Texas to be shipped wherever else in the world. But all of the jobs around that are going to be American jobs. We haven't done much except extract and export. At the same time, Danielle Smith is saying, no, she actually wants a second pipeline to the Pacific coast, a little bit further up the BC coast than the one. BC government ferociously opposed to that. And where are the Conservatives in all this? They're at the same time asking Carney to remove the tanker ban that stops those tankers that would have to be brought in from that upper pipeline. And there's no answer to that either. So I think that they're just flailing. They'd gone to Washington saying they were going to talk about steel, aluminum, and all of a sudden energy was on the table. And frankly, if it's Keystone XL, it should be a non-starter for Canada, especially for someone like Mark Carney, who knows full well that Canada has obligations under the Paris Accord, and we've got to start doing something to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and respect the idea that we have to think about future generations whenever we take a decision in the country.
So Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has been very clear, crystal clear on her stance with what's going on with the energy sector in Alberta. If the communist NDP leader in BC, David Eby, if he does not allow a pipeline to go to the Pacific coast, which he won't. So right now what's going on, let me break it down, is the battle of, just to simplify it, of who gets to keep their job. British Columbia's premier is severely against pipelines, very much. Hard no. And the people of British Columbia apparently have voted for this guy. They don't want it because it's not environmentally friendly, climate change, blah, blah, blah. Yet most people, like over 80, 90% of people in BC drive gasoline vehicles, but they're against oil and gas and pipelines. No, you can't do that. So they want to bite the hand that feeds them. Alberta is very pro pipeline, obviously, pro oil and gas. So in order for, because elections are, going to be coming around the corner for these premiers at some point, in order for them to be reelected, they have to get what they want. Alberta, pipeline. BC, no pipeline. Alberta trying to get a pipeline through BC. He says no. So he's trying to save his job. She's trying to save her job, but also make more money for her province, which would in turn make more money for BC. But they're idiots. They're idiots. They don't know what the hell they're doing. So a real thing that has happened is Alberta has said, Danielle Smith has said, if he's not working with us, we're just going to do a pipeline to America. And that's going to be our new pipeline, which is going to piss off not only BC and communist David Eby, but it's going to piss off the rest of Canada because that money is going to be going to America and it'll probably be paid by American companies. So again, like either you're Canada first or you're not. So either get the pipeline approved to the Pacific coast or you're going to make the biggest screw up in almost Canadian history of having our pipeline go to America and be funded probably by America and American companies. So right now it's kind of interesting to see this tug of war because it's literally, it looks so bad on David Eby. And I hope that there's a massive marketing campaign and videos like this that can get pushed out further so that people in BC can be aware of just how what's the word politically correct? Retarded David Eby truly is to be blocking pipelines. It's actually insane. Canada's environmental status quo is insanely high. We have like the highest standards for extracting oil and gas and building pipelines out of any other country in the entire world. Probably. It's insane. Like, all these companies have adapted to the carbon capture and all this stuff. Like Canada is very clean with how we do things, which is why it takes forever to get anything done because our standards are so high that it's just hard to like keep doing things. It's interesting to see this all unfold and to see who is a real Canadian, like who actually wants stuff done for Canada and who's against Canada. And David Eby is against Canada, the NDP. Go figure, right? Go figure.
Government.
Yeah, well, let's expand upon that if we can and some of the fallout, right? It was maybe going to be steel. It was maybe going to be aluminum. Talk about the sectoral taraffs. And this really does seem to be the only development that has been made public about that meeting between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. Is that Pierre Poilievre was quick to jump on it in question period yesterday?
Yeah, well, with
clearly,
good reason. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so what do we make?
Makes life easier for an opposition leader to be able to take shots at that. That's for sure.
So what do we make of the follow, Tom? Is still, I'm not saying that it's done yet at this point, but, without any news or without any significant developments, not even necessarily a win for the prime minister in this, it still is tough.
But everything in politics is instantaneous, especially since the advent of social media. So Mark Carney is someone with deep experience at the highest level internationally. He knows how the game is played. He went into that meeting with a very clear mandate. He said, I will leave that meeting if it's a bad deal. He's always repeated that no deal is better than a bad deal. And he seems to have stuck with that because Trump was trying to sell it as being, the Canadians are going to be so darn happy with what I have to propose. They had their meeting in the White House. Then they had a private meeting. And then Dominic LeBlanc said, no deal, we're going to continue talking. That's the good news. Yesterday, Mark Carney was saying that we're going to get a better deal. Now, that is interesting because that's called raising expectations. And in politics, that's the last thing you want to do unless you can deliver. So my sense of it is that Carney knows that there is something in the works because the Americans need a deal as much as we do. you. American consumers are hurting. The price of a car or a pickup truck is going to increase greatly. Cost of building a house in the U.S. is going to increase greatly with the 45% tariff on softwood lumber, because most of the lumber sold in the States comes from Canada. And yet that wasn't one of the main things on the table. So nor was automobile. So we have to try to get to a place where we're preparing the next Canada-U.S.-Mexico deal. That has to be renegotiated just around the corner. It has to be renegotiated next year. So they came away from this meeting with nothing except more promise. And I do think, though, that Carney is playing his cards close to his vest, and he's got something in the works with Trump, and especially with Letnick, who is the slightly smarter version of Trump, but somebody who is equally unpredictable.
CTV News political commentator, former
he just can't help himself. It's wild to see the lack of self-awareness from mainstream media and their
NDP leader Tom
and their guests. Sorry about that. And you know what's funny? It's always kind of left-wing progressive guests that go on these talk shows. Never once have I been invited. I've actually emailed CTV saying I'd love to go and talk to you guys. I'd probably make myself look like an idiot. I wouldn't be wearing a suit. But these people don't understand that Canada needs to use our resources. We can't just brag about it. We can't just be that rich kid, the rich kid's son who brags about how Papa has Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Papa has a yacht, and we never actually do anything with it. And it's such braggadocious behavior. People eventually realize that, oh, you're just bragging about having it. You're not bragging about using it. Oh, we're going to come and get it, because we know at some point there's going to be a big shift in the world. Either America is going to say, okay, well, time's up, we're taking it, or China's going to try to do something. But at some point, something like that is inevitable to happen. Look at any map over the last 1,000 years. Things grow and things collapse. Things shift and they move around. It's just inevitable. So if Canada doesn't actually find ways to, use our resources, our minerals, our oil and gas, we're going to lose it. It won't disappear, but it's very likely that somebody could take it. And that's a real threat that is out there that the left just doesn't seem to even think about. Kind of crazy.
Mr. Letnick's comments, is the auto sector able to survive without a free trade with the U.S.?
Listen, what I can say is that we've been fighting, as you know, for the auto sector, for the workers. It's a great industry in our nation. I see ourselves, when I say that, Canada and the U.S. more as complementary than in real competition, because the fact that we have integrated supply chain, and I would say that goes back for decades, is what really makes our products more innovative, more competitive, and I think that's something which is positive on both sides of the border.
But he's saying the U.S. first now, Canada second. That's Mr. Letnick's position.
Listen, I heard this comment, but I can say from a Canadian perspective, and I've been spending quite some time with the auto sector, is really when you look at the integrated nature of our production, when you look at the auto parts, when you're looking at aluminium, when you look at the essential things that you need to build the cars of the 21st century. Think about the battery ecosystem, for example. Everything you need to make the cars of today and tomorrow is the fact that we're integrated, and I think this is what makes North America very competitive. This is the economic bloc where we have brought innovation, competitiveness, and I think by that kind of approach that we have had for decades is what has made the cars that we make.
Okay, this is Finance Minister Francois Philippe Champagne speaking to.
Yeah, we have access to so much of this stuff here in Canada, and we're just not really using it. It's so freaking bizarre. I don't get it. And one of the most bizarre things that's going on in Canada right now is the fact that we have no gold. Canada used to have a lot of gold, and we don't have any. Our government got rid of our gold reserve. It's insane. If you have even an ounce of gold, you have more gold than our freaking government. And we have gold mines. Isn't that crazy that Canada has no gold? And now gold has surged past $4,000 US per ounce, which is, I don't know, 25,000 Canadian, a bajillion in Zimbabwe dollars. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Let's have a look.
Gold Gold is going up right now for a number of reasons. Most recently, significantly, it is a combination of interest rates, tariffs, and a general erosion of the U.S. dollar, which has lost at least 10 to 12% of its value against the other currencies globally in the last 6 to 9 months.
黄金消费的话，总体还是买的人偏多的。最近金价
It's still generally high, but the recent increase in price is quite significant, so a lot of people come to buy.
अभी सोना का बहुत ही ज्यादा भाव
As the
बढ़ने के
price of
हिसाब
gold has
से
increased, the
सोने का अभी
sales
बहुत
have
मंदी है
drastically
और अभी
declined.
दागिना कोई लेता
No
नहीं
one
है
buys
ग्राहक बहुत
ornaments,
मंदी है
and there are very
और
few
बहुत जरूरत
customers.
वाला होता है वही
Only
दागिना
those who
थोड़ा बहुत
desperately
लेने
need to
आता है और
buy
हमारा
come to
पास
buy
तो ऑर्डर ही
gold.
काम आता है तो अभी जो छोटा बड़ा शोरूम होता है तो ऑर्डर ही काम एकदम ही खत्म हो चुका है घर का हाल अभी बहुत ही बुरा है
From my perspective, I think there's still some room for investment opportunities. There are downsides, but there's also room.
Cukup
I was
agak
quite
kaget sih ya
surprised
Pak
with the
dengan
price surge.
kenaikan
Wow, so Canadian media brings on a bunch of literal foreigners, eh? Where it's not even translated.
saya merasa lebih aman.
Of course it is. Look at this. It's all foreigners. Well, where's the friggin' like 75-year-old white dude running a gold shop or something? What's going on here? Global news, huh?
To get through and trade above it. I think it's happening right now in front of us and today. And with that happening, I think that's just going to move the bar further ahead that we could be starting to think about gold at 4,200, 4,300, and 4,500 in the coming 6 months.
It will probably happen. It will probably happen. People want more stability than the Canadian dollar, than the American dollar, and things like that, right? And gold does seem to be a really good thing. Even when you look at, I think it was like El Salvador or something, or one of these countries, they invested in Bitcoin. I think it was like $100 million or $100 billion or something like that into Bitcoin. And now they've, 5x'd their investments, which is crazy. And so I just feel like the Canadian government, the Canadian way of life is, it's enabling people to remain in poverty. Because lead by example, right? Our government is not good at handling money, at making money, at managing money. We have no gold reserve. We have nothing. We're sitting on one of the biggest oil reserves in the entire world, and we don't even use it properly. Our premiers fight over yes or no for building pipelines. It's sad. Canada is really, really sad. It's pathetic. It's actually pathetic. But now we're going to take a look at some of the Liberal MPs that were walking into a emergency meeting this morning. This is kind of interesting. Let's see what Mark Carney had to say.
Ça dépend parce que c'est un mélange de ce qu'on a ici au Canada. C'est d'avoir une analyse des voix pour... Merci pour votre question. Alors, oui, c'est le président Trump.
Bear with me, folks.
C'est le progrès du président.
Like a 40-minute video
comment
here.
le Canada peut continuer à nous abonner. Les otages doivent être libérés. Trump, whose decisive leadership, who've been possible. Merci. It is a day for optimism. I want to salute, of course, President Trump, whose decisive leadership has made this possible. Mr. Kushner, Mr. Witkoff, the Qataris, the Egyptians, Turkey, who've been essential to getting to this moment. The next 48 hours are crucial. We urge the parties, particularly Hamas, to follow through, release all the hostages, and including the deceased hostages. The President and I discussed in the White House how Canada can support this process. We are supporting with humanitarian aid. There's other mechanisms that we can do to support it. And I urge, as I say, I urge all parties. We're encouraged. We're encouraged, but it's the first phase, and there's more to come. Thank you.
Plus d'efforts en français, M. Carney.
J'ai fait, non, ok, je viens de vous donner de voir.
All right, we got to skip through the French here. Let's see who else we get to see in the halls, huh? Who else are we blessed with? Let's have a look. By the way, Pierre Poilievre is going to be going live here very shortly. I am waiting for that. Don't worry, folks. I got eyes and ears on everything. We're good. We're not going to miss a single thing. Also, I did notice that CBC is going to be streaming Question Period today. And they only do that on very specific days. So if you want to stick it to CBC, hit the like button. Okay, let's try to get hundreds, if not thousands of likes. Because CBC, we're going to be competing with CBC today. Wow, they really didn't get to interview anyone in this scrum. We got half-assed Carney for English. Oh, look at this weirdo.
Very hopeful.
Is this a CRA guy? He looks exactly like someone who holds that job title.
Who gets credit? I think that we all want to see an end to this conflict, and anybody that's trying to bring everyone together and end this terrible conflict deserves thanks and deserves some credit for sure.
So you think you deserve some credit?
Well, for sure. I think the United States is obviously a world leader, and when they speak, people listen and people react to that. And I think that the fact that there is something on the table, I think we're all very hopeful and we want to see it resolved.
Do you think that this deal can hold?
Yeah, I do. I think the time for conflict, it's been 2 years, as we all know, since October 7th, and I think there's obviously a willingness amongst all countries and obviously the two parties to end this. It's gone on too long, and I think that anything that has any gestures or initiatives, I should say, that bring the parties together to end this terrible conflict is welcome, and let's hope we get a positive resolution within the next couple of days.
What can Canada do in the upcoming weeks, months, in this file particularly? What's your role?
I think, Minister Anand and obviously our Prime Minister have shown great leadership. I think we've been consistent, and I think it's time to end this conflict, and I think Canada's voice has been a strong voice, a good ally, and it's time for this to end. Thank you.
Are you concerned that Harold Lott thinks that Canada has to come second in integration?
No, I hadn't heard that. I think that our country's in great hands with obviously Minister LeBlanc, our Prime Minister, and certainly I know from a constituent level that Canadians are very much behind the Prime Minister and what he's doing, and it's a very difficult situation, but we're in good hands with Prime Minister Carney. Thank you.
Can the auto sector survive?
Carney holds so many different passports. Carney's own money is invested in places outside of Canada, predominantly in the United States. That's crazy, right? That's fine for you and me, by the way. Like that, there would be no judgment there. If you want to put some money in American stock markets, into the S&P 500, like go for it, right? You're not trying to represent our country as a leader, but if you're representing Canada as a leader, and you're not even like that super pro Canada, it's kind of weird, right? You remember when they revealed Pierre Poilievre's investment portfolio, and it was the most boring in Canadian stocks you'd ever seen, ever? It was like five stocks or 5 investments, and most of them were Canadian ETFs. Pierre Poilievre, when you stack them up against each other, Pierre Poilievre is so pro-Canada, and Mark Carney is such a globalist, elitist scumbag. It's so funny to see the drastic comparisons between both of the party leaders. It's insane, because the whole like Maple MAGA thing, and Pierre's like Trump. Dude, he's nothing like Trump. As a Trump fan, he's nothing like Trump. In fact, Carney's like Trump. Carney literally gets along with Trump. It's weird. It's so weird.
How much credit do you give Donald Trump?
I give credit to our Prime Minister. He's the best negotiator.
That's what they say about Trump. That's what they say about Trump. Look at that. Mark Carney is literally Maple MAGA. Oh my goodness.
Oui, ça fait longtemps que je l'ai vu. Toujours. Vous aussi?
Oui, couru, je fais mon âge. Oui.
Oui, good.
3.5.
L'industrie automobile, 5. Les négociations.
Après, je pensais pas que les véhicules voient en conflit dans les fighting as
Survive.
Ils voient pas ça comme ça. Les Américains voient pas ça comme ça.
Mr. Lutnick's comments, is the auto sector able to survive without free trade with the U.S.?
Listen, what I can say is that we've been fighting, as you know, for the auto sector, for the workers. It's a great industry in our nation. I see ourselves, when I say that, Canada and the U.S. more as complementary than in real competition, because the fact that we have integrated supply chain, and I would say that goes back for decades, is what really makes our products more innovative, more competitive, and I think that's something which is positive on both sides of the border.
He's saying the U.S. first now, Canada second. That's Mr. Lutnick's.
Listen, I heard this comment, but I can say from a Canadian perspective, and I've been spending quite some time with the auto sector, is really when you look at the integrated nature of our production, when you look at the auto parts, when you're looking at aluminum, when you look at the essential things that you need to build the cars of the 21st century. And think about the battery ecosystem, for example. Everything you need to make the cars of today and tomorrow is the fact that we're integrated. And I think this is what makes North America very competitive. This is the economic bloc where we have brought innovation, competitiveness, and I think by that kind of approach that we have had for decades is what has made the cars that we make here in North America.
Okay. That's enough of that stuff. That's enough of that stuff. All right, guys, we're going to take a look now. Pierre Poilievre is going to be speaking with reporters here in any moment. What I would like for you guys to do is, today's going to be a really big day. Okay, we've got CBC is streaming question period, which is odd because they don't normally do that. They don't, unless it's like a really big day, they don't do it. They did it for the first day back, parliamentary session, for Carney's first day, for that stuff. Occasionally they do it, but they don't always do it. So hit the like button. All right, hit the like button. We're going up against CBC today. Want to make sure that we're staying ahead of them. And yeah, we're waiting for Pierre. We're waiting for Pierre to show up. Look, he's not there. This is a live feed. Pierre's not ready yet. So what we might do is take a quick look-see-poo at this CBC segment, Power and Politics, talking about how the Alberta pipeline is putting real private BC projects at risk, says David Eby. My goodness, what a little communist.
Okay, so in those meetings in Washington yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump and Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, raised the possibility of reviving the Keystone XL pipeline. It would run from northern Alberta to the U.S. Midwest. This, as Alberta has been pitching a different pipeline, one that would run from the province to the northwest coast of British Columbia. BC Premier David Eby says he doesn't support it, but Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, she is not backing down.
Should it really be easier for us to deal with Donald Trump and get Keystone XL restarted and built down to the Gulf Coast? Should that be easier than building a new bitumen pipeline to British Columbia, Port of Prince Rupert, so that we can access Asian markets? Like, does Canada work or doesn't it? That's the turning point that we have right now.
Well, the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, joins me now. Premier Eby, always good to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
He looks like a depressed Woody from Toy Story. I just love it. Oh my goodness. This guy just looks and sounds so pathetic. And that is obviously reflected in his policies, in his views. It's so funny.
Today, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David.
You just heard Premier Smith criticizing your government for being harder to deal with on a pipeline project than President Trump. She's also referred to you as un-Canadian and calls your actions unconstitutional. Them's fighting words, Premier. How do you respond to that?
Them's fighting words.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to begin, David. I've been trying to maintain a good relationship with Alberta. There's so much that we can do with Alberta, and we've tried to work with them on a number of projects. But what I have right now is a minister from Alberta who is going along to First Nations along the coast of British Columbia and saying that Alberta is going to be building a heavy oil pipeline through to their communities, which they see as an existential risk. There is an oil tanker ban off the coast for good reason. It protects a very fragile coast, but it was also the social license for a significant economic development piece along the north. Major projects, the largest private sector investment in Canadian history in LNG Canada Phase 1. That coalition is currently considering Phase 2. There's Silisms LNG and Cedar LNG, as well as a massive port expansion in Prince Rupert. All of it depends on the goodwill of these First Nations. And this is all being put at risk by a premier from Alberta who's advancing a project that has no proponent, no route, no private funding, and these are projects in BC that have proponents, private funding, they're through environmental assessment, and they're ready to go. And so to have those projects put at risk by what is frankly a non-existent project from Alberta is wildly frustrating.
Okay, I want to just talk.
So this is almost turning into what came first, right? The chicken or the egg, right? Danielle Smith is saying that she's ready to go ahead with a pipeline to the Pacific Coast. And David Eby's saying, well, we can't commit to anything that you're ready to move forward with. We need a concrete plan. But the thing is that if the construction starts in Alberta and gets to the border of BC, he will block it, because he doesn't want pipelines to go through British Columbia. This has been the tug of war between Alberta and British Columbia for years. It goes back so far because BC is, well, I hate to say it, but voted quite progressively. NDP of all things. Like, it doesn't get more communist than that. And so it's just sad to see. And unfortunately now our pipeline is going to be going to America, funded by American venture capitalists, American companies, and we're going to be paying royalties to them. And it should have been a Canada pipeline, and it won't. It won't be because of this guy right here.
Talk about those phone calls from the Alberta minister that you mentioned there, because I spoke with Marilyn Slett on the show last week, and she said she'd been called, I think, the day before the premier announced that she was going to be, basically the government would be the proponent. They're calling them directly, not saying they want to build a pipeline, they're saying they will build a pipeline. I mean, what is your understanding of what the nature of those conversations are?
Well, I know what I've been told directly, which is that Alberta has a proponent for the project, and that if the pipeline is not built, then the country as a whole is broken. Which tells me that from the perspective of the Premier's office in Alberta, this is an existential issue for them. The only way this pipeline gets built is if there are tens of billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars going into it.
No, it'll be privatized.
There is no private proponent putting it forward. And if there is $40 to $50 billion of federal money to build a pipeline from Alberta to BC's north coast, well, let's have a fair and open bid process among all the provinces and territories to show what we could do with that kind of money. Why is it always Alberta that threatens to leave the country unless they get tens of billions of dollars? On Pipeline 1, $30 billion of federal money went into the Trans Mountain Pipeline project. It's not even at capacity, and there's an optimization project that could significantly increase the amount of product that it moves from Alberta to Tidewater to Asian markets, but there's no interest in talking about that. It is exclusively about this non-existent project that threatens big projects in BC that are going to benefit the whole country, that frankly Canadians from coast to coast to coast work on and help us deliver.
Okay, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago when you were here in person in Ottawa, you talked about how you were able to do your economic industrial.
Semaine des promesses brisées par Mark Carney. Évidemment, les conservateurs sont ici pour renforcer le pouvoir d'achat des Canadiens, protéger leurs emplois.
Holy crap, that scared the crap out of me. Wow. Oh my goodness. I had the Pierre feed pulled up. Holy crap, that scared me. That scared anyone else? I was like, is Pierre in my head? And it was a French stream too. Did you guys hear that? That wasn't just me, right? Oh my goodness. That scared me. All right. Well, Pierre's live now. That scared the crap out of me, man.
Sous notre fier drapeau.
Yeah, he started speaking
French. C'est ça notre vision.
He's in your house,
c'est ça notre mission.
Or something.
C'est pour ça qu'on a.
Hey Pierre, while you're in the kitchen, make me a coffee, bro.
Consacré de travailler avec n'importe qui à la Chambre des communes pour l'accomplir. Malheureusement,
That's so funny.
avec M. Carney, c'est une promesse brisée
Sometimes
après
I'm good at
l'autre.
this at the streams, and
On a vu
sometimes
qu'il a
I'm
promis
bad.
l'économie
This might be a bad
qui
day.
grandit le plus rapidement dans le G7, ça décline le plus rapidement dans le G7, avec le deuxième pire chômage parmi tous ces pays-là. Il a promis de dépenser moins. Ses déficits sont 100% plus que ceux de Justin Trudeau. Il a promis plus d'investissements. Il y a 54 milliards de dollars d'investissement qui a fui notre pays depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir de M.
Make sure you guys hit the
Carney.
like button, though. Huh?
Il a promis
We got to keep the
des coudes
momentum up.
élevés. Où sont ces coudes maintenant? Il a promis d'obtenir un deal avant le 21 juillet et de négocier une victoire face aux Américains. Et c'est quoi le résultat? Les tarifs américains sur le Canada ont doublé. Il n'y a pas de deal, il n'y a pas de victoire, il n'y a pas de coude sous M. Carney. Ces coudes sont chirurgicalement enlevés de son corps. C'est notre promesse. Quelle humiliation que M. Carney a eue à la Maison-Blanche. Le lendemain de ces grandes réunions, l'administration Trump a annoncé qu'ils vont garder en place les tarifs sur les automobiles. Mais M. Carney dit qu'il est prêt à accepter les tarifs sur le secteur automobile. Il a trahi nos travailleurs d'automobile qui risquent à perdre leur emploi. Il a trahi les travailleurs en bois en acceptant le double de tarifs sur notre bois d'œuvre. Donc, toute la campagne des coudes élevés de M. Carney, c'était une fraude, une grande fraude, on peut dire, après 7 mois de ce premier ministre. Il a fait absolument le contraire de ce qu'il a promis pendant des élections et les Canadiens ont payé le prix. Il doit aussi expliquer ce qu'il voulait dire. Quand il était à la Maison-Blanche, il a dit « Nous sommes le plus gros investisseur étranger aux États-Unis avec un demi-billion de dollars investis ces 5 dernières années et probablement 1 000 milliards de dollars d'investissement de plus pour les 5 prochaines années si nous obtenons l'accord attendu. » Ça veut dire que M. Carney vise à encadrer dans l'entente l'expulsion de notre 1 000 milliards de dollars d'investissement aux États-Unis du Canada. Mais d'où provient cet argent-là? Ça vient de quelque part, non? Ça ne va pas tomber du ciel. Donc, les investisseurs vont être encouragés de vendre leurs usines, leurs pipelines, leurs produits, leurs moulins ici au Canada pour investir aux États-Unis. Ça va engendrer des pertes d'emplois massives. Et comment va-t-il le faire? Va-t-il adopter une loi encourageant les fonds de pension, les fonds d'assurance de vendre leurs investissements au Canada pour investir aux États-Unis? Va-t-il juste garder en place des taxes élevées pour encourager le sortie de cet investissement? C'est quoi son approche pour envoyer 1 000 milliards de dollars aux États-Unis? Et est-ce que M. Trump, est-ce que le président s'est consacré à faire 1 000 milliards de dollars d'investissement au Canada au retour? Si c'est un entente réciproque, on s'attendrait à ça, mais non. M. Carney n'a rien obtenu. Il ne veut pas répondre aux questions. C'est une défaite après l'autre, une promesse brisée après l'autre. Aujourd'hui, nous débattons son approche. Il répète exactement les mêmes slogans de Justin Trudeau. Il va dépenser moins pour investir plus. Il fait exactement le contraire. Il dit que les déficits sont les investissements. C'est exactement ce que Justin Trudeau a dit quand il a promis que le budget allait s'équilibrer par lui-même. Et quel est le résultat? Pendant 10 ans, on a perdu 10% par capita en termes d'investissement. On a le pire investissement dans le G7, la pire économie dans le G7. Et M. Carney continue avec la même approche d'augmenter les dettes, augmenter les coûts sur les consommateurs, augmenter le coût de l'épicerie. C'est la même recette libérale de déficit, de taxes, de l'inflation qui a échoué pendant 10 ans. Et heureusement, les conservateurs vont continuer d'offrir de l'espoir. On va proposer de réduire le coût de l'État pour réduire les taxes, les impôts, l'inflation sur le dos des Canadiens. On va donner le feu vert aux projets, aux grands projets, les projets qui sont autofinancés sans des subventions du gouvernement pour devenir un pays plus riche et plus fort. Nous voulons que le Canada, les Canadiens ont plus de pouvoir d'achat pour l'épicerie, pour le logement et pour tous les autres besoins dans un pays avec une promesse que chacun qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie abordable dans les communautés sécuritaires. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for being here today. We're doing a week in review, and it has been another week of broken promises for Mark Carney. In fact, he's outright shattering all of his promises this week. He promised that Canada would have the fastest growing economy in the G7. He's delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 with the second highest unemployment. He promised to spend less. His deficit is 100% more than Justin Trudeau's. He promised that there would be more investment in Canada. $54 billion has left in the 7 months he's been Prime Minister. And he promises to push out, now he admits he's going to push out $1 trillion more, and we'll return to that in a minute. He promised that he would negotiate a win with the U.S. with a deal by July the 21st. So far, no deal, no win. American tariffs on Canada have doubled. Yeah. And yesterday, after promising our auto workers and lumber workers he would defend them, he sold them out. He sold them out and accepted that, a day after he left the White House, the Secretary of Commerce said they will be keeping tariffs on Canadian finished automobiles, which will devastate our sector. Already, we're losing thousands of jobs in Ingersoll, 800 jobs with CAMI in Ingersoll, hundreds of jobs in Oshawa with GM, while that company invests $4 billion more in the United States. We've also had 150 workers in Windsor told to down tools in Stellantis as that company announces it will invest $8 billion more in the United States. But Mark Carney has sold out our auto workers and gotten absolutely nothing in return. Then there's our lumber workers. Since Mark Carney got elected promising to end the American tariffs, those tariffs have doubled, with massive job losses across British Columbia, Northern Ontario, and rural Quebec expected as a result of this latest Carney failure. I think we can now conclude that Mark Carney's entire elbows up campaign was a gigantic fraud. He didn't mean a word of it.
Yep.
His wife's firm was putting out memos in the middle of the campaign saying, don't worry about the Liberals promising to counter tariff and be tough on the U.S. They don't really mean it. They won't really do it. He was quietly removing the tariffs while going to campaign rallies promising to put them back on. He told the president in a phone call, I don't mean all that stuff I'm saying about you. So it means he's two-faced. And since the election has happened, he's done exactly the opposite of everything he promised. And I should be clear, this was not a promise. This was the promise he ran on in the election. It was the only thing that got him elected. He said, ignore 10 years of rising food prices, housing costs, out-of-control immigration and crime, because I'm the only guy who can negotiate with the Americans. And that turned out to be a gigantic fraud. So the entire foundation of Mark Carney's election campaign was not only a broken promise, it was a fraud for which thousands of Canadians are paying today with lost jobs. We cannot trust anything that Mark Carney says. And then there's this $1 trillion. It's time for him to do some explaining. Because I'm just reading his quote here. He says, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone. Probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement we expect to get. So that means he intends to put right in the agreement that he's going to push $1 trillion of investment to the United States. How is he going to do that? He said it would be private investment, so he's going to pass a law forcing pension funds and insurance companies to push their money to the States out of Canada? Is he just going to keep in place the high taxes and anti-development policies that have already forced hundreds of billions of dollars of investment abroad? And are the Americans committing to send $1 trillion back? If he says this is just normal capital flows between countries, surely then President Trump is going to be committing to $1 trillion of investment in Canada. To be clear, $1 trillion is the equivalent of a third of our entire GDP. It's like literally all the economic activity for 4 consecutive months. And Mark Carney wants to send it away. This means factories, mines, mills, and other businesses closing in Canada and opening in the United States. Where was that in Mark Carney's election platform, that he was going to push $1 trillion of Canadian investment to the U.S.? I'm very curious if any of you could find that. In fact, he has broken all of his promises, and we can't trust him anymore. We're in the House of Commons today. We are debating a Conservative motion exposing the insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Remember, Justin Trudeau promised 10 years ago that deficits would lead to investment. That was what he meant when he said the budget would balance itself. Over in that building, he said,
he's trolling
you see,
pretty good.
If you run deficits, they will spark investment, which will grow the economy, increase tax revenues, and the budget will balance itself. Well, Mark Carney wrapped it up in a more sophisticated sounding, but not all too different slogan, and it was a slogan: spend less and invest more, but it meant exactly the same thing, that government deficits would generate investment that would grow the economy. Well, how does it work over the last 10 years? Because it's exactly the same formula. Well, we've had the worst per capita growth in the G7. Per capita investment in Canada is actually down 10% in Canada. Again, the worst in the G7. They then repromised this during COVID. They said after COVID was done, they were going to make generational investments that would grow our economy. And here we are, our per capita GDP is smaller than it was in 2019. And they expect to repeat this same lead to gold, deficits to investment promise that they've been breaking for 10 years. The only difference between Carney and Trudeau is that Carney dresses up his monster money-losing deficits and the respectability of a banker's suit with more sophisticated slogans and even bigger costs. But it will, at the end, have the same deadly results for our economy. Less investment, less jobs, higher costs. So we need a change. We need Conservatives who will cut the cost of government to cut the cost of living, who will focus on stronger paychecks, safer streets, secure borders in a self-reliant Canada. We know what we have to do this. Cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, gifts to handouts to phony refugee claims, corporate welfare, bring down the deficit, the taxes, and the inflation. We need to get the government out of the way to build big projects, not just the Keystone Pipeline. And I want to congratulate President Trump for supporting the Keystone Pipeline for the last 8 years. Only the Liberals have opposed that pipeline.
Good job.
They didn't get it done, and now suddenly we seem to be on the verge of a flip-flop by Mark Carney.
Work with
But here's
Trump.
the problem for Carney.
Good job.
What's he going to put in the pipeline? He has a production cut that is in law, that he wants to cut back on the production of oil in Alberta. So that means there won't be enough oil output in Alberta to fill the pipeline as long as Carney's policy is in place. So what does he want to put in this new Keystone XL pipeline? He wants to pipe Crown Royal to the Americans? I mean, what's he going to fill it with? Unless, of course, he flip-flops again. Remember, he voted in the House of Commons 10 days ago to keep the cap on Canadian emissions and production. He said publicly that he would keep the production cap. So is Mark Carney going to admit that just like on the carbon tax and the electric vehicle mandate, he was wrong and the Liberals are going to break their promise and flip-flop? Because that is the only way we will produce enough oil to fill that pipe. Conservatives would get rid of all these Liberal policies. We would unleash production. We would open this country for business, make it the richest nation on earth, a nation where the promise of Canada is alive and well, where people who work hard get a great paycheck, an affordable home, great food, in a safe neighborhood under our proud flag. Thank you.
Good. Pierre Poilievre is now slowly becoming a little bit more very subtly, more and more pro-Trump. He did it yesterday by congratulating Trump literally 1 minute, 60 seconds. Look at the timestamps on Twitter if you want. 60 seconds before Mark Carney on finding a deal in the Middle East for releasing the hostages out of Hamas and having, a deal agreed upon between Israel and Hamas. This is incredible. Pierre Poilievre is slowly becoming a little bit more pro-Trump. And the liberals are realizing that Carney's as pro-Trump as it gets. They're literally best friends. This is what I recommended Pierre to do from the beginning. He didn't really do it, but now he's doing it. I want to congratulate Trump for being pro-pipeline for the last 8 years. Good job, Pierre. This is how you win. This is phenomenal. Work with the Trump administration. I like this.
Thank you. We will now open the floor to questions from media.
The nice man was going to give me a round of applause. Why did you guys stop him?
Sure. Hi, Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News. You're talking about major projects. Today, the head of Carney's new major project office was at committee, and she says that her aspiration is it would take 4 to 5 months to determine whether an Alberta pipeline is, quote, a project that should be designated in the national interest. What do you think of this timeline, and is this a project that the government should be greenlighting?
Well, it's too slow, and the government should green light it today. The government should signal that they favor, the federal government favors a pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta, beautiful Hardisty, Alberta, to the Pacific coast, probably Kitimat or Prince Rupert. And, we know the economics make sense. We know that there are private businesses that will be glad to build it once there's a permit provided by the government.
Good.
The only thing Mark Carney needs to do, two things I just say. This is exclusively a federal decision. So David Eby is well worth ignoring. He has no legal and constitutional authority to block this project. It's all up to the federal government. The federal government and Mark Carney need to do only one thing to make it happen. Get out of the way. If they get out of the way and grant a permit, there will be billions of dollars of private money that will rush in and build this pipeline with lightning speed, because it is massively profitable to take underpriced oil from Alberta and send it to 2.5 billion Asian customers who will pay the full world price. Mark Carney, get out of the way and let Albertans and Western Canadians build a beautiful pipeline.
Thank you. Next question.
Good.
Bonjour, Monsieur Poilievre.
I like that. But also, David Eby is getting in the way. So blasting David Eby might not be the worst thing. And then also acknowledging that if these communists don't get out of the way, the pipeline would go to America, because Danielle Smith has already said that. If he shined a little bit more of a light on that, I think that would be positive, in my opinion.
Émilie Bergeron, La Presse canadienne. Vous avez énuméré il y a quelques instants.
On informe le gouvernement vouloir utiliser partisans et politiciens souverains, protégeant le gouvernement libéral d'adopter nos bonnes idées pour qu'on puisse renforcer notre pays et obtenir un bon deal pour le Canada avec les États-Unis.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Can I ask you about Gaza? Just your thoughts on a ceasefire in Gaza, what role you'd see for Canada moving forward. And can I ask you as well, I mean, you've rightly condemned Hamas, but do you have any concerns with how Israel has carried out its campaign in Gaza?
Thank you for your question. And first of all, let me congratulate President Trump on a historic peace deal. This could be the beginning of a very beautiful, peaceful period in Middle East history. Let's all hope it is. But it took his leadership, his diplomacy, and his strategy in order to secure this deal. And it is up to Hamas now to respect its side, hand over all of the hostages, and disarm itself, stay behind the line, and allow the peace to go forward. We want Palestinians and Israelis to live in peace, prosperity, and harmony. And hopefully there's a very bright future for all of the Abrahamic peoples who cherish the Holy Land. Here at home, I want to condemn again the rampaging anti-Semitism that we have seen in our streets, Jews having to live in terror as these monsters throw Molotov cocktails and shoot bullets at children's schools, at synagogues, and terrorize our Jewish communities. It's totally unacceptable. Canada must always stand against anti-Semitism here and all around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Decent answer.
Mr. Poilievre, Patel, the Toronto Star, you've suggested that if you were Prime Minister, you would be able to reach a deal with the U.S. that had no tariffs. What negotiating skills or tactics or information do you possess that the Prime Minister does not have?
Well, first of all, you want to talk about the Prime Minister's skills. He's very good at getting jobs, terrible at doing them. Every job he's had, he's been either taking credit for things he did not do or done a terrible job himself. You know, in Great Britain, he caused, he had the second highest inflation of any other G7 country when he was the governor of the Bank of England. He caused the housing crisis in that country. And he set up this green alliance designed to defund our entire energy sector. That's fallen apart. When he was a corporate lobbyist, his specialty was stashing his cash away in offshore tax havens, moving money out of Canada. So he's been very good at getting jobs, very, very bad at actually doing the jobs like we see right now. As for my approach, first of all, I would negotiate from a position of strength by unlocking our resources. I would repeal the anti-energy laws, C-69, C-48, so that we can legalize production of our minerals, oil, gas. I would rapidly approve pipelines to Tidewater so that we can have other markets that we can reach. I would get rid of the capital gains tax on any monies reinvested in Canada so that we could bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars that Mr. Carney brags that the Liberals have pushed out of our nation. That would give us a position of strength from which to negotiate. And then I would work with the Americans on a deal that would see Canada massively increase its military might and take its burden of protecting our continent, while at the same time having reciprocal free trade across our borders that will allow both of our countries to be stronger, safer, and richer. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
Jillian Piper with Global News. On Keystone XL, why are you supporting building a pipeline into the United States when Canada is looking to diversify its economy away from the U.S. right now?
Well, we should build pipelines in every direction. It's a good question. We need to build pipelines south, east, west, maybe even north. But the reality is that it would be better to have it than not to have it. We would be able to move, depending on the size, anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million barrels of oil to the U.S. market. Some of it, I think, would even make it through to the U.S. Gulf Coast, getting world prices rather than the discount rate we now accept. And it would be good for both the Canada and the U.S. It would hopefully create jobs for steel workers on both sides of the border. But you are right. We need a pipe to the Pacific. And you know that Mark Carney, I'd challenge you to find a single example of him ever saying he supports an oil pipeline to the Pacific. Has he even said it once? He's been running, he started running in February, so it's been, what, 9 months? He's never once been clear that he wants an oil pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific. He did testify in the industry committee, under my questioning, that he was against such a pipeline. It's time for Mark Carney to stop playing dodgeball. The decision is going to be on his desk. He has the legal authority and the constitutional power to approve or deny that pipeline. He is the only one. And my message, I'm very clear. I would approve a pipeline to the Pacific from Alberta in a millisecond. Mark Carney's had 7 months as Prime Minister. It's time for him to come clean on his position.
Phenomenal answer. Very good. I would approve the pipeline to the Pacific coast in a millisecond. That is great. Good job. That type of rhetoric, that type of messaging is what we need right now in Canada. Because no matter if you're on the right or the left, we all know that Canada needs to be united and Canada first and blah, 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 blah. This is how you do it.
Okay. Last question.
Monsieur Poilievre, Monsieur Poilievre, en français, quel message est-ce que ça envoie aux francophones?
C'est un manque de respect flagrant de M. Carney envers la langue française. Il devrait essayer de parler plus souvent. J'ai aucun commentaire sur la qualité de son français, rien du tout. Je respecte tous les anglophones qui essaient de parler français. Évidemment, mon français n'est pas parfait non plus, mais comme vous le remarquez, je commence presque tous mes discours en français et je pense que c'est l'obligation de tous les chefs fédéraux de respecter la langue française en parlant souvent et partout au pays en français.
What do you make of London's comments that Canada's auto sector should come second?
Yeah, thank you. There's a question on. So just this is.
What do you make of Lutnick's comments that Canada should come second when it comes to the auto sector? And this is after months of negotiations.
Yeah, this is another terrible failure by Mark Carney. The day after Carney was in the White House, the Commerce Secretary to the U.S. administration came out and said that our Canadian auto sector should come second. And this is after Mark Carney has made concession after concession, recently promising $1 trillion of investment for the U.S., and he's accepting second place for Canadian auto workers and continuing tariffs on our finished products. I think of the hard-working auto workers in Oshawa, in Windsor, in Brampton, who are terrified of losing their jobs because of this diplomatic failing by their Prime Minister. Mark Carney has sold out our auto workers and failed them completely. We need a Prime Minister who will stand up and fight for auto jobs here and always.
Thank you. This concludes today's event.
This gentleman, this nice gentleman, has been waiting long enough. He had a very important question. Yeah.
Attaboy.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is shaping up to be the 10th Liberal promise-breaking, high-cost, deficit spending budget. And with that, Mark Carney is increasing the cost of living and threatening the jobs of Canadians. I will be sitting down with Mr. Carney with a clear plan for him to reverse course on his costly budget plans and instead go with an approach that brings stronger take-home pay, secure streets, solid borders in a self-reliant Canada. And I hope that he will take my ideas because Canadians are ready for them.
Thank you, folks. That concludes today's press conference. We have to get off to question period.
Oh, he's doing another. We don't know what the question is.
Well, first of all, Sean Fraser, can you imagine? This guy is a human wrecking ball. Like, seriously, he was the Minister of Immigration that destroyed he destroyed the best immigration system in the world. Look at the graph. This was our immigration rate all along until someone named Sean Fraser came along and increased our population growth by 300% almost overnight. He single-handedly destroyed the consensus we had on immigration. He destroyed our housing market, our health care, and our job market. This one guy, and Mark Carney has promoted him now to be the Minister of Justice. So for him to lecture anybody on any matters of immigration is the height of liberal hypocrisy and shows nothing has changed after 10 years of the Trudeau government to the Carney one. Now, on birthright citizenship, we've got, because of Mark Carney's former immigration minister, Sean Fraser, we have roughly, 3 million temporary residents here in Canada. And the risk is that some might think that the only way to stay is by having a kid here. And at the end of the day, our system is already overrun. Our health care, our housing cannot afford to do that. And so what Ms. Rempel is saying is that for everyone who is an immigrant to Canada as a permanent resident or a citizen, of course they can pass on citizenship to their kids. But if you're coming here as a visitor and neither parent has an attachment to Canada as a permanent resident or citizen, they can't pass citizenship down the line. I think that is a perfectly common sense approach. We have to get rid of the liberal insanity in our immigration system, and return to the best system in the world. Thank you. At the appropriate time. Thank you. I got to go to question period.
Question period.
No,
Thank you very much.
I got to go to question period. Mark Carney's going to be very upset with you if I miss question period, so I can't do that. He's going to be. I don't want to break his heart. I'm going to go to the House of Commons to see Mark Carney.
Thank you, folks. Merci.
Okay, I can get on board with this. He's cheeky. He gave really good answers. I think we might be back on track. I like this a lot. This is, you know what this is? This reminds me of the way, this is his own way of handling the press in a somewhat kind of similar fashion as what Donald Trump does, right? Just very dominating the press conference, telling reporters, okay, this is how it is. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Nah. That's what we need. We need a little bit more of that. We don't need it to be like Trump or exactly like Trump, but Trump is popular for a reason, for many, many reasons. He speaks the truth. He dominates press conferences. He doesn't let the media to walk over him. He's always confident, like all these characteristics. And Pierre's changing a little bit. He's changing his tactic. And I've been kind of vocal about how I feel about Pierre recently on X. And that's up for, you know, my mind can be changed on that. So what I just saw, I like very much. So good job, Pierre. Good job, Conservatives. I like it. That got me excited. That got me, I was attached to the screen. I very much liked it. Okay, folks. Yeah, you're right. Put some W's down in the chat. Like, we want the Conservatives to win. Chances are, if you're watching this channel, you're pro-conservative. I'm not anti-conservative. I'm not anti, you know, Pierre fundamentally. I just want to see them win. I want to see the win. And if it means shifting around the pieces on the chessboard to make it happen, then sure. Or maybe the pawn swaps out and becomes, you know, a queen or king or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say, right? And so Pierre's evolving right now. Pierre's evolving, and that's good. I like that. I like that evolution. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Come on, let's get to 1,000 likes. We got like 2,000 people in here. Today's a big day. Pierre got us amped up. Let's show some respect. Put some W's in the chat for Pierre. Hit the like button if you haven't yet already. Don't hit it twice, because then it likes it and unlikes it. If you're going to do it, hit it 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9 times, but not 2, 4, 6, or 8. All right? Let's take a look at what's going on in the House. This is going to be a good day. One of my favorite MPs is talking right now, Todd Doherty from PG.
Tomorrow on World Mental Health Day, let's remember that there is no health without mental health. Every day, 12 Canadians die by suicide. A further 200 attempt suicide. That's 73,000 Canadians per year, Mr. Speaker, and thousands more struggle in silence. Earlier this week, I received a message from a wife of a first responder who died by suicide. She asked me to remind my colleagues that the brave men and women behind the badge are someone's husband, father, daughter, brother, friend, or colleague. They put their uniforms on every day to serve you and I and our families, to serve us and to keep us safe. And we're failing them, Mr. Speaker. Whether it's our brave police officers, paramedics, firefighters, nurses, correctional officers, or even the PPS officers right here in Parliament, they're all someone's loved one, and they matter. To anyone who is struggling, you are not alone, and if you or your loved one is in crisis, help is available 24/7. Call or text 988. And remember, it's okay not to be okay. Our world is a better place for you in it.
Not a boy, man. Not a boy.
The honourable member for South Surrey White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow egg farmers across Canada celebrate World Egg Day, recognizing the critical role eggs play for Canadian families and also the contributions of egg farmers to Canada's resilient domestic food system. More than 1,200 egg farmers support businesses and communities in this country on an ambitious growth agenda to increase production and consumption in alignment with the government's vision for sustainable growth. I know this as I grew up on an egg farm, collecting roughly 3,000 eggs daily as a child. Egg farmers are proud partners in regional economies and food security. Egg farmers sustain thousands of local jobs, strengthen rural economies, and provide Canadians with a reliable, high-quality source of protein. I thank all parliamentarians for their support of our Canadian egg farmers. Ask them to join me in wishing our farmers a happy World Egg Day.
The honourable member for Moose Jaw, Lake Centre, Lanigan.
Mr. Speaker, I've witnessed the applause of the Liberals as they stood in the House cheering the loss of Canadian jobs. They cheer as Saskatchewan farmers have to deal with tariffs alone and pat themselves on the back, making farmers pay longer loans. They cheer of the news that car manufacturing is shutting down in Canada and head south of the border. They cheer as they try to borrow their way out of debt and burden Canadians with more taxes. They give standing ovations when we watch investment dollars go south of the border in trillion-dollar giveaways to Trump. The Prime Minister said it's okay Canadian investments go south of the border because it's a free market down there. Free market there, not here. Why do the Liberals represent, or who do the Liberals represent? Whose side are they on? Mr. Speaker, do you know what Canadians who are struggling this Thanksgiving would be grateful for? A Prime Minister that would stop breaking his promises to Canadian working families and a government that represents Canada.
The honourable member for Prescott Russell Cumberland.
This October marks the 20th anniversary of Global Dignity, a non-religious, non-political nonprofit that celebrates the inherent dignity of every person.
Every year, more than 1 million young people in 80 countries around the world participate in Dignity Day, reaching more than 8 million people worldwide. On October 15th, young people across Canada will celebrate with workshops, projects, and activities that highlight kindness, respect, and inclusion.
I would like to recognize Inuit artists and youth such as Tony Itak, Krish Agrawal, Eva Suluk, and Jamie Bell with the Art Borbs Corners Collective, who will join with partners in Norway and the United States to share 20 dignity-themed short stories with the world.
I invite all members of this House to join me in congratulating Global Dignity on 20 years of having an outstanding impact.
Let's celebrate the voices of Canada's youth, who remind us that dignity is a foundation of a just and compassionate society.
The honourable member for Barrie South Innisfil.
How could you not love Vladdy and David Ortiz repeating after the game, "The Yankees lose"? Actually keeping their elbows up against the Yankees, the Toronto Blue Jays have punched their ticket to the American League Championship with a 5-2 victory last night. Credit to Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, manager John Snyder, and his staff for building a culture where players play for each other and not for themselves. And along the way, they've allowed an entire nation to be part of this season. This, Mr. Speaker, is how championships are built. From Vladdy to Bo, Ernie to Gauze, Dalton to Kirky, Canadians know this team by their first names and nicknames. We're all part of this ride now, and I think I speak for every Canadian when I say we want it all. We want them to win the World Series, the ALCS. We want them to win the World Series. We want it all. So as the Blue Jays wait for their next opponent, Mr. Speaker, start spreading the news, and I wish I could have said it like John Snyder said it. For the first time since 2016, the Blue Jays are going to the ALCS.
Conservatives are hyped today. I don't know.
The honourable member for Brome, Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, today I would like to pay tribute to my father, André, who is 93 years old and visiting Ottawa. Through his integrity, his wisdom, and humanity, he remains for me a constant source of inspiration. Through him, I would like to salute all the women and men who built the country that we have the great fortune to live in today. Our seniors are the living memory of our nation. They remind us that solidarity between generations is at the heart of our identity. Honoring our seniors means recognizing their contribution and continuing their work by building, in our turn, a fair, welcoming, and humane country. Thank you, Dad, for your example and for everything that your generation has done.
Oral questions.
Oral questions.
When the U.S. increases its tariffs on our cars and softwood lumber, the PM made a big promise. He said that Canada has already invested $500 billion over the past 5 years and will probably invest over $1 trillion if we reach an agreement together. The Prime Minister said that it will be private money. Will he force U.S. investors or just encourage them to invest here in Canada? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr.
Speaker, today is a momentous day, and I'm sure all parliamentarians would join me in recognizing the historic progress that has been made in the Middle East under President Trump.
Look at that Maple MAGA Prime Minister Carney. Wow.
I would like to commend the leaders of Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, the architects of the plan, Mr. Kushner and Witkoff, and underscore, as I did to the President and to Mr. Kushner, Canada's full support in ensuring that all parties implement all phases of this plan.
Here we go,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We all congratulate President Trump for his peace deal in the Middle East, of course, but I asked a question in French with respect to Canadian jobs, Mr. Speaker, and the Prime Minister needs to offer some respect to Quebec and Francophones that are losing their jobs, and that he needs to answer the question. The question is, he has promised, in terms of the U.S. deal, it will involve trillions of investment, which threatens the jobs of Canadians. Did he obtain this money from the U.S. in exchange? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the current situation is that Canada has the best trade deal with the U.S. worldwide, first. Second, we can improve this agreement, and that is why Minister LeBlanc is currently there in Washington trying to negotiate with the U.S. And against this backdrop, there will be more investment here in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister came home empty-handed with more tariffs on softwood and automobiles, but he made a massive promise of $1 trillion of investment that would leave Canada to go to the United States. He said that this would be part of the agreement that he expects to get. So right in the agreement, he's going to commit to moving $1 trillion out of Canada. Yesterday, he confirmed it would be private money. So how is he planning to do that? Is he going to pass a law forcing our pension funds to move their money south? Or is he just going to continue with high tax and anti-development policies that cause investment to flee?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Good answer. Good question.
Think about it. Mr. Speaker, I was there. And I was there in the conversation with the President. I was there in the conversations in the Oval Office. I was there in the conversations afterwards. And the situation is this. We have the best deal in the world. We're in the process of making it better for the workers in the steel sector, for the workers in the aluminum sector, for our energy workers, for our auto workers, for our workers in forest products, for our workers across this great land, because we believe in Canada. We will not rest till we have the best deal.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, what we have is the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 with the second highest unemployment, and he was there. So he has a duty to tell the Canadians who are the owners of this $1 trillion that he wants to push out of our country what is in this deal, because he said it would actually be in the agreement that he's going to move $1 trillion of private money south. So there's two ways to do that. Read it. Is he going to pass a law forcing investors to sell Canadian investments, putting people out of work here, and invest in the South? Or is he going to continue to kill jobs with high taxes and anti-development policies that send money away?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Hit the like button, guys, if you haven't yet already.
Mr. Speaker, I know the honourable member was not here when this government cut income taxes, cut capital gains taxes, cut the carbon tax. I know the honourable member was not here when this government passed legislation for one Canadian economy and to build major projects across this great land. But the member opposite will be here when this government presents a generational investment budget November 4th, and we hope to have this.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We must be on to something here, because he has $500 billion. Canada has invested $500 billion in the U.S. over the last 5 years alone. Probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement we expect to get. So this is what he said. This is after he has failed to get tariffs lifted on our auto workers, our lumber workers, after thousands have lost their jobs, after he created the second highest unemployment and the worst growth in the entire G7.
Yeah.
So here's a very direct question. He's committing $1 trillion Canadian investment dollars to head south of the U.S. Has he secured an agreement that President Trump will send the same?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has no tariffs on auto parts. Canada has the lowest tariffs on finished goods in the world. We are working towards an agreement that will increase investment in Canada, that will increase investment in the United States, but we will only accept the best agreement for Canada, and the private sector, remember that, will make those decisions.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he says he's going to put it right in the agreement, so presumably he's going to enforce it somehow. Another Liberal contradiction, another failure and broken promise by this Prime Minister. Let's go to energy. Just days ago, the Prime Minister voted in favour of an energy cap that would make it impossible to fill another pipeline. Then he woke up and discovered that President Trump has, for the last 8 years, supported the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, we know that as long as he blocks production in Alberta, we won't be able to fill that pipeline with oil. So what is he going to fill it with? Maple syrup?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I voted, as did others, a majority in the House, voted against a motion to get rid of something that does not actually exist.
That's right.
Okay, the first thing, does not actually exist. Secondly, we are working with the private sector. We are working with the province of Alberta. We are working with the Americans to unlock great Canadian energy to build this economy.
Yeah, America's going to own the Canadian
The Honourable
pipeline
Member
if you
for
keep it
Bella
up.
Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward, and a month ago, I think my colleague, the Leader of the Opposition, should be ready to talk about the independence of Quebec. But in the meantime, heavy trucks are the object of a 25% tariff as of November 1st. Lumber has different types of tariffs, up to 45%. Aluminum and steel, up to 50%. Automotive, 27.5% in tariffs. I would like to know from the Prime Minister, when will he explain to all companies in these sectors and their workers and their subcontractors? Inaudible. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it was hard to hear the last part of that question. So the facts of the current situation. We have the best deal in the world with the U.S., first. Second, our tariffs, the tariffs on steel, aluminum, We are negotiating right now to bring them down. Third, the tariffs on trucks and automotive are the lowest in the world. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. I will hold the Prime Minister to his word. During the election campaign, right after it, he said there'd be no more tariffs. Well, these tariffs shouldn't even exist as reprisals between friendly countries. But he said there'd be no more. And then the week after, he said there'd be a free trade agreement. He himself changed ideas, and he says he wants to negotiate a pipeline to the U.S. How does this diversify our economy, Mr. Speaker? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, in terms of the diversification of the Canadian economy, with our reliable partners and partners such as Asia, Indonesia, we've just signed a comprehensive deal. We are also in negotiations with the European Union, with the all the Asian countries. And there will be more deals with countries in South America. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. It's much later than the timeline the Prime Minister promised when he was campaigning, but we can understand that. Well, now he says there are currently negotiations underway to reduce tariffs. For 6 months now, tariffs have been going up. The U.S. keeps adding tariffs. So this isn't a great success right now. In the meantime, can he at least use the programs that he has announced for aluminum and softwood? Because not even 1 cent has been sent.
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite will have the opportunity to support programs for the steel, aluminum sectors and all the sectors in Quebec and Canada with the current budget that will be tabled on November 4th.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands.
Since the Prime Minister took office, nearly $54 billion investment dollars has fled our country. Yet the Prime Minister said that Canada will send the U.S., quote, $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get, end quote, that he expects to get. Well, it's Thanksgiving, and I'll tell you what Canadians expect. They expect a Prime Minister who will stand up for investment in this country, who will stand up for Canadian jobs. So when will this Prime Minister do that and finally stand up to the Americans, stand up to Donald Trump, stand up for Canadian workers?
Yes, sir.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inform my honourable colleague and the members of this House that we have provided billions of dollars of support for this economy, including $5 billion in a strategic response fund, Mr. Speaker, and we're doing this while supporting our workers, supporting sectors, including auto, and maintaining Canada's AAA credit rating and the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Mr. Speaker, we will get the best deal for Canada, and we will take the time that we need to in order to get this done. Thank you.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to inform the minister that Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7.
Yeah,
I'd like to inform the minister that with this Prime Minister, it's been all about concessions. Back down on their DST, back down on softwood lumber, back down on auto. They've backed down on investments, and they've backed down when our workers needed them to stand up to Donald Trump, like the Prime Minister said that he would. Auto plant closures, steel plant closures, layoffs across this country. Canadians want to know why he's sending $1 trillion of investment to the Americans. When's he finally going to stand up for Canadian workers?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
She doesn't care.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we actually believe in the potential of this country, and in fact, the statistics are bearing this out. The lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, inflation and wages are are working in Canada's favor. We will continue to grow this economy by investing in the workers, by investing in sectors, and we will do this while making sure that foreign direct investment flows to Canada, where we sit at the very top of countries as ranked in the G20. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
We're losing our ranking every day. We're going further and further in that.
While in Washington, the Prime Minister bragged that his Liberal government has already driven $500 billion of investment south of the border over the last 5 years. And then he proudly vowed that he would send another $1 trillion south of the border if we get the agreement that we expect to get. In other words, this is exactly what this Prime Minister wants to do. He wants to drive investment from Canada to the United States. So much for elbows up, hey? So here's the choice. Does the Prime Minister plan to order Canadian pension funds to invest in the United States? Or does he plan to continue his anti-development projects or initiatives?
You ran out of time. The Honourable Government House Leader.
We have this disturbing trend about the Leader of the Opposition making something up, and then members down and up the line, they even add on new and very intriguing figures and facts, Mr. Speaker. We don't quite really understand, can't follow the logic. Here's what I can say the government's doing. It is in negotiations with the United States as we speak. The Minister for Canada-U.S. Trade is there. We're going to negotiate a great deal for Canada, and we're going to continue to build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
It's all just posturing. What's in the works?
Here's what we know and can't be refuted. We know that Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. We know that the unemployment rate is the second highest. We know that Canadians are already struggling to be able to put food on their tables and take care of their families. And now we know that this Prime Minister went to the United States of America and promised that he would drive another $1 trillion of investment south of the border, therefore putting Canadian families at a disadvantage because they won't have jobs. What will this Prime Minister do to put his elbows up and stand up for them?
Holy smokes, man.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, taking the Opposition Research Bureau stuff and just repeating it does not make it true. What we do know, and Statistics Canada would confirm this, is that Canada's economy is in fact growing. And what does growth mean? It means we're adding value to our economy, adding opportunities for workers. Of course we're concerned about job losses. Of course we will continue to defend Canadian workers right across this land. But one thing's for sure, we'll take our statistics from this side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Swift Current, Grasslands, Kindersley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's an old proverb that says that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Canadian workers are getting sick and tired of this Prime Minister's good intentions. The best predictor of the future is the past. So let's take a look at the Prime Minister's record. His last act as the chair of Brookfield was to move their company headquarters out of Canada into the United States, into the welcoming arms of President Trump. So I guess it's pretty clear. The Prime Minister will continue to sell out Canadian workers to the U.S. Isn't that right?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat what we have announced in this House. 85% of Canadian exports go to the U.S. without any taxes or tariffs, Mr. Speaker. What's more? Moreover, please listen. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian economy is open. Capital moves on both sides of the border, and we're going to do everything we can to continue to attract capital to Canada to invest and grow faster. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised U.S. President $1 trillion investment in the next 5 years if they get the agreement we deserve. And how come the Prime Minister recommended the move of his company, Brookfield, to this headquarters to the U.S. And now they're investing in the U.S. How come the Prime Minister is recommending investment in the U.S. instead of in Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry. I have to confess, Mr. Speaker, that I'm surprised to see that our members opposite do not understand this notion of capital flows. The entire Canadian economy is an open one. Capitals come in, they go out. It is a great transition to invest abroad and also to accept foreign investment. That's what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to grow the Canadian economy. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. The contract, Mr. Speaker, we understand that he recommended moving the headquarters of Brookfield to the U.S., and now the largest company has announced that it would move its headquarters to the U.S., a trucking company of 25,000 employees. Right now, it's not surprising to see the Canadian economy is contracting the fastest in the G7. We should be employing Canadians and not Americans. Does not the PM not agree? Mr. Speaker, that's exactly the question on April 28th. Canadians answered in great numbers, yes. It's just this Prime Minister who's going to be in charge of governing Canada and to continue to spur economic growth that is both quick and diversified. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the minister accused us of misrepresenting his words. He's always the one who talks about the Russian invasion of Ukraine when he justifies his opposition to the notwithstanding clause. He's the one who sent a brief to the Supreme Court in which he used slavery and summary executions as arguments. He is always the one who claims that the notwithstanding clause could be used to ban places of worship, abolish trade unions, and shut down newspapers. Frankly, who is distorting reality, the minister or those who defend the notwithstanding clause? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. It's clear. It is essential for the federal government to defend our charter, to defend our human rights, and protect our Constitution. If this case is before, the Supreme Court, it is responsible for us to defend the charter and our Constitution. Mr. Speaker,
remember how before QP started?
There are no circumstances when the federal government won't intervene, and it's important for today and tomorrow to protect the rights of Canadians. The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, in an open letter from the 5 premiers, the signatories point out that the notwithstanding clause made it possible to repatriate the Constitution. But the Liberals want to rewrite history and fully subject to Quebec and the provinces to the federal charter. In short, the Liberals want to erase the constitutional compromise of 1982. This government is orchestrating a power grab to weaken the National Assembly and the provinces. Will the minister not see reason, respect the notwithstanding clause, and stop attacking the parliamentary sovereignty of Quebec and the provinces? Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I disagree entirely with what my Bloc colleague has just said. Our intervention with the Supreme Court is to defend the rights of Canadians and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There's nothing in our intervention before the Supreme Court that would prevent provinces to continue to use the notwithstanding clause if they want to. But we want the rights of Canadians, well, if they're violated by the use of this clause, for the courts to be able to pronounce a decision on that respect.
Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Canada has the fastest shrinking economy and the second highest unemployment rate in the G7. BC forestry workers are already hard hit, but it's going to get worse. The Prime Minister promised to negotiate a win with the USA, but softwood lumber tariffs have doubled since he took office. Instead of keeping his promise to Canadians, he is promising to invest $1 trillion into the U.S. economy. How many more BC lumber workers will lose their jobs because of this Prime Minister's failures?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear that the tariffs are unjustified, and we are working at every level to address them. We've created $50 million of supports for workers. We've created $700 million of liquidity support for companies and $500 million for new markets and new innovations in the sector. We're going to continue to work to support the forestry sector, and we hope that they'll get on board.
That's great.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
This Liberal government can't make up their mind. On one hand, they say it's unjust, then they say it's the greatest deal in the world.
Exactly.
Make up your mind. There's mills closing all across BC. Skeena Sawmills in Terrace, Canfor in Houston. West Fraser shut down and left hundreds of my constituents out of work in an already weak economy. Our communities are hurting. Since this Prime Minister took office, softwood lumber tariffs have doubled, putting even more Canadian jobs and communities at risk.
Right.
When will this Prime Minister do what he promised and stand up for our forestry mills and for the communities and families who depend on these jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, we will always stand with the workers in the affected communities, which is why we continue to invest and will do so in the future as well. There are significant difficulties with the long-standing softwood lumber dispute, but those are difficulties we are addressing head-on. We are working at every level to challenge them, and we are doing that with the support of the whole Canadian economy. We are finding that we can leverage innovative new ways to make sure that we can get the best deal possible for our lumber sector.
The Honourable Member for Kapuskasing, Timmins, Mushkegowuk.
People in Northern Ontario and Canada.
I'm glad Timmins switched to Conservative. They had Charlie Angus of all people, the radical NDP, Charlie Angus.
The Liberal government is failing sawmill workers, and the situation is only getting worse. The Prime Minister promised to negotiate a deal with the Americans. Yet forestry and sawmill workers in Calstock, in Hearst, Cochrane, Chapleau, Kirkland, and all across Canada are facing the real prospect of losing their job. Yes. What is in place does not work. Why is the Prime Minister selling out our sawmill workers in Northern Ontario and all?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, I'm no stranger to communities that struggle when industries are struck. I'm from Northern Ontario as well. But the difference between our government and the members opposite is that we step up for workers when they're struggling, whether it's through EI reforms, whether it's through investment in companies so they can actually transition, whether it's through work sharing to get a company through a tough time so that they can see a brighter future. That's the work we do on this side, Mr. Speaker, with companies every single day. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, Canada now has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and the second highest unemployment rate. And it is looking worse for lumber and mill workers in Northern Ontario. The Prime Minister promised to, and I quote, negotiate a win, but softwood lumber workers are being sold out with no deal. Why is the Prime Minister breaking his promise and selling out Canadian mill workers?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, this is a great time for me to highlight the incredible work of FEDNOR, the Federal Economic Development Agency of Northern Ontario, who works with organizations across Northern Ontario and has for years to make sure that as industries change, as times change, as products change, that companies have what they need to be able to grow and adapt. We've invested millions of dollars into the softwood lumber industry, into the lumber industry in general, Mr. Speaker. We'll be there for workers, we'll be there for companies, and Canadians know that they can trust us, unlike those folks.
Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is breaking records, the fastest shrinking economy in the G7, second highest unemployment. If failure was an Olympic sport, this government would own the podium. The Prime Minister came to West Kelowna, held a press conference, and promised to negotiate a win on softwood lumber. He even said Canada would write our own story. Well, his story so far, tariffs doubled, mills closed. People, hundreds of people are out of work and their families have been sold out by this government in places like Grand Forks. Mr. Speaker, if this is the story that the Prime Minister wanted to write, was the title he had in mind, How to Fail Big?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, Canada does write its own story, and that's a story that includes buying Canadian and buying Canadian lumber to build Canadian homes. It's a story that includes $50 million in income supports for workers. It's a story that includes $700 million in liquidity support, $500 million for innovation in the forestry sector. That's a pretty good story, Mr. Speaker, and I hope they'll help us write it.
The honourable member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has long been renowned for its strong advocacy for multilateralism on the international stage. During Canada's historic presidency of the G7 at this turbulent time, our government has been committed to continuing this tradition. Could the Minister of Foreign Affairs update the House on how Canada's diplomatic efforts are driving prosperity, creating good jobs, and strengthening our position in the global economy?
Good job. We're so proud of you.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable colleague for her question. I want to say every country with whom I'm speaking wants more of Canada. In fact, in the G20, Canada is ranked amongst the top 2 destinations for foreign direct investment. We are the only country in the world that has a free trade agreement with every other G7 country. We are forging new relationships in the Indo-Pacific, in Europe, and in Africa. Mr. Speaker, we will not stop until we get the best deal for Canada, and all along the way we'll stand up for our workers.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, in the G7, Canada has the fastest shrinking economy and the second highest unemployment. And it's only getting worse for auto workers, like the ones in my hometown, Oshawa. The Prime Minister promised to protect Canadian auto workers, yet one day after his trip to Washington, the Trump administration confirmed no relief. Auto tariffs and a promised $1 trillion to the U.S. Why is the Prime Minister selling out auto workers and families in Oshawa?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I thank the member for the question, and I'm sure the members opposite and all members of this House are well aware that we are in a major moment of transformation. The economy around the world is changing, and that's why we are going to continue to work to get the best deal for Canadians, including Canadian auto workers, through U.S. But we're not stopping there, Speaker. We're also working around the world to create new markets for Canadian auto, for Canadian workers, to make sure that we're signing up new deals with countries in ASEAN, in countries in Mercosur, because that is how we're going to make sure that Canadian remains strong and Canadian workers have good paying jobs.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear the only auto workers that these Liberals stand with are U.S. auto workers. This is personal. These are good, livable jobs that helped families buy homes, raise kids, and retire with dignity. They've done everything right, and now they're being told their jobs don't matter. These losses are the direct result of the Prime Minister's failure to stand up for Canada's auto workers, even though he promised. How can families in Oshawa and across Canada ever trust this Prime Minister again?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, thank you. This government will never let Canadian auto workers down. We will not let any workers down. We will work day and night to make sure that Canadian auto industry remains one of the best success stories, and that's why, as we speak, Minister of Canada-U.S. Relations is down in Washington working hard to negotiate a deal that is right for Canadian workers, and that's why the Minister of International Trade is in Africa to make sure that we have opportunities in other parts of the world. We will continue to that work so that Canadian workers have good paying jobs right here in Canada.
Ah, yes, Africa. Very good trading partner of Canada.
Speaker, Canada has the fastest shrinking economy of the G7 and the second highest unemployment levels. If you listen to the U.S. Commerce Secretary, it's only going to get worse for auto workers, including those at the local GM plant in St. Catharines. In May, GM announced its largest investment ever in an engine plant just across the border from us in Tonawanda, New York. Meanwhile, it was crickets in St. Catharines.
That's right.
Why is this Liberal Prime Minister so hell-bent on selling out our hard-working Canadian auto workers?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we're making unprecedented investments in our auto sector. The $5 billion Strategic Response Fund, for example, and all the while we are making sure that workers are supported. Companies like Nexstar Battery have committed to hire 2,500 workers and have just hired their 1,000th worker, Mr. Speaker. As an MP with Ford Motor Company in my backyard, let me tell you, we are here for the workers, we are here for the auto sector, and we will get the best deal for our country.
The Honourable Member for Niagara
Nobody
Falls,
believes
Niagara on the
that.
Lake.
Speaker, General Motors has had a presence in St. Catharines since 1929, nearly 100 years. And if this Liberal government doesn't act, it might not reach the century mark. As billions of dollars flee Canada for the U.S., Canadian auto workers are watching in dismay as their Prime Minister offers up their jobs to the Trump administration. And for what? A free lunch. When will this Liberal Prime Minister stop selling out our Canadian auto workers? Or as he already concluded, their jobs are motoring to the United States.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, while we are on the topic of Canadian workers, first of all, let me thank Canadian workers, and in particular unionized workers, for contributing to the growth of our economy every single day. Our government ensured that the workers who are unionized are going to have 20 extra weeks of EI. That's expected to help thousands of workers. Mr. Speaker, on top of
That's causing some outrage.
$150 million for retraining and upskilling to help more than 50,000 workers. Mr. Speaker, the opposition doesn't like
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and the highest unemployment rate. 150 workers at the Stellantis plant in Essex-Windsor have lost paychecks, and now we learn that investments of $10 billion are going to a U.S. battery plant. Wow. One day after the Prime Minister's trip to Washington, the Trump administration said no auto deal is coming. Why is the Prime Minister selling out Canadian auto workers in Essex, all the while fueling the tank of the U.S. economy?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Speaker, you know why Canadians don't trust Conservatives? Because they lie to them over and over and over.
Oh my goodness. Go fuck yourself, Patty Hajdu. Wow. Put some L's in the chat.
Before that problematic word.
No. You're going to try and gaslight people? No.
There's a reason, Mr. Speaker, that Canadians don't trust the Conservative Party. It's because they don't trust the words coming out of their mouth. Over and over and over, they hear misinformation. In fact, Stats Canada shows that our economy grew in Q1 of 2025.
This is what we're up against. Straight up evil.
And of course, we have sectors that are struggling. But you know what Canadians know, Mr. Speaker? They know we have their back. While they laugh at supports for workers who have lost their job, extra 20 weeks, my son and other people who are at...
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and the second highest unemployment. Contrary to what these guys believe. It's only getting worse for weak people in Windsor. The Prime Minister is breaking his promise that it protect Canadian jobs. A day after his trip to the U.S., we just got told there's no deal coming. Jobs in Canada at risk U.S. and the Prime Minister is pledging $1 trillion to grow the U.S. economy, which is a slap in the face to our workers. He moved his own company, Brookfield, to the U.S., and now he's doing the same for Canadian jobs. Why is this Canadian Prime Minister helping the U.S. grow their economy?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Newtecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Honda Canada and Alliston are outraged. This Prime Minister sold them out again. He folded like a cheap suit in front of Donald Trump. Canada already has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and the second highest unemployment rate. Now the Liberals have failed to secure a deal with the Americans. They're stripping the auto industry for parts and shipping those jobs straight to the U.S. Enough broken promises. Why are Canadian auto workers paying the price for this Prime Minister's failures?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, Canada has produced automobiles as part of an integrated North American industry for well over a century, and it will continue to produce automobiles for a century and more into the future. And that member knows well that we are standing up every day for union jobs in automaker plants right across this country, and in Southern Ontario, we are standing up for the auto parts manufacturers. We're standing up for the entire supply chain. We have the support of the automakers in that position, and we will always, always stand with the auto industry in this country.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Knowles Hill.
After a decade of Liberal immigration failure, we need to restore order and fairness to the system, and today there are over 3 million temporary residents in Canada, an unprecedented 7.2% of Canada's population. Wow. There's no plan to get them to leave, and this is straining housing, healthcare, and jobs. Now some temporary residents are exploiting Canada's outdated automatic citizenship rules to try and overstay their visas. Will the minister align with most other countries in the world and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada's legislation is clear. Since the end of World War II, if you were born in Canada, you are a Canadian citizen. This government will continue to support a fair and constitutional citizenship framework.
Bill.
The problem is, for the first time in Canadian history, we have over 3 million temporary residents in the country, and the Liberals are still issuing record level of more temporary resident permits. So now you combine that with the Liberals' broken humanitarian claims system, a protracted appeal system, and their reluctance to deport. What's happening is that most temporary residents effectively stay here indefinitely. Fairness must be restored. Will the minister update our outdated laws and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member has her facts wrong. This country and this government will not create a two-tier system, and we will never penalize the children for the children in this country that are born here. Thank you.
That wasn't
The Honourable
even
Member for
appropriate to the original
Longueuil-Saint-Hubert.
question.
Mr. Speaker, the courts have been clear. The first-generation limit to the transmission of citizenship by descent is unconstitutional. We must respond to this and create a fair constitutional citizenship framework. Can the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship tell us how Bill C-3 offers a recourse to those who have been deprived of their citizenship, and how it offers fair access to citizenship for future generations? Thank you. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. With Bill C-3, we are offering a solution for these lost Canadians. And we will also ensure that children born or adopted abroad can also access citizenship if their Canadian parent, who also was born or adopted abroad, has a substantial link with Canada. That is how we will balance fairness with the immense value of Canadian citizenship. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, Canada's economy is the one that is weakening the quickest in the G7. The Prime Minister promised that he would come out of the meeting with President Trump with a victory. But after concession, softwood lumber workers have lost a great deal. The Prime Minister came back empty-handed, and softwood lumber is not even on his priority list. He promised there would be an agreement to remove all tariffs. But why is he no longer respecting his promises now that he's been elected? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, softwood lumber is indeed an industry that's experiencing a difficult period, and it's not the first time. This industry has often been the target of our American neighbors, and that's why we need to negotiate a comprehensive agreement that will help all Canadians. And as the Prime Minister said, we will not sign just any old agreement. We will sign an agreement that helps all Canadian sectors, including softwood lumber. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, softwood lumber tariffs have doubled since this Prime Minister came to power. The Canada Forestry Services Association stated that with more than 200,000 direct jobs at stake, our sector is acting the Prime Minister to show the same sense of urgency about softwood lumber as he does about steel and aluminum. Why is the Prime Minister letting down these 200,000 workers and their families? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we are very familiar with the softwood lumber sector. I personally am very familiar with this sector, and we know that this type of situation with our American neighbors has happened over and over. We will be able to negotiate an agreement with them, and that is why we're not going to sign any old agreement. Instead, we will ensure that the agreement we sign will benefit all Canadians and all sectors.
For Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, Canada already has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and the second highest unemployment. It's only going to get worse in Cambridge auto workers who work at Toyota with jobs and investments fleeing south. Just after the Prime Minister's trip to Washington, the Trump administration says there will be no deal on autos, putting thousands of workers and their families at risk. To add insult to injury, the Prime Minister promised to send $1 trillion to the U.S., spending money on American jobs while Canadians get pink slips. Why is the Prime Minister so quick to invest in America's future while selling out the livelihood of Canadian auto workers?
The Honourable Government Leader.
Mr. Speaker, of course, Canada's economy is in fact growing, and that is a statistical and objective fact. I very much empathize, not particularly with this honourable member who is reading the points that they sent in from the back room, but I do empathize with the people of Cambridge and the anxiety that is felt throughout the auto sector. It is not obvious that the President of the United States has put on the table tariffs that completely alter that sector and don't necessarily always respect the very good and very hard work that they do. We will defend those people.
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday our government introduced Bill C-12 to secure and protect the integrity of Canada's immigration system, reinforce our border, and curb the transnational flow of fentanyl. Can the Minister of Public Safety inform the House why we need to move swiftly to pass Bill C-12?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Bay of Quinte for this very important question and his very hard work. The Strengthening Canada's Immigration System and Borders Act will strengthen our border and keep Canadians safe. It will ensure guns and fentanyl are off our streets, Mr. Speaker, and it will assist law enforcement with the required tools to do their job properly. I want to take this moment, Mr. Speaker, if you will allow me, to thank the frontline RCMP, CBSA, CSC, as well as CSIS staff who work on the front lines each and every day, and I want to wish them a happy Thanksgiving.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, this morning we learned that French only makes up 17% of the Prime Minister's speeches. When I had the honour of being part of the previous Conservative government, all speeches began in French, and today the leader of the official opposition gives French pride of place in his speeches. Mr. Speaker,
yeah, he does.
We're not in England. This is Canada. Does the Prime Minister realize that French is also the language of business, both in Canada and throughout the world?
I'm not fond of it. I wish Canada sometimes was just English, but it is what it is.
Of Identity and Canadian Culture. Mr. Speaker, I have some news from my colleague across the way. We are the government that has done the most to help official languages in Canada. We modernized the Official Languages Act, and we offered $4 billion in investment. That's historic. For official languages throughout the country. For the first time in the history of the country, we reached our targets of Francophone immigration outside Quebec. We're going to ensure that those targets then reach 12%. That's historic. That's what I would like to tell my colleague.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I often hear parties in the House say they support workers. In fact, I've heard a lot about workers today. Yet when I tabled my bill to protect the right to strike and collective bargaining, crickets from the Liberals and Conservatives. So words are one thing, action is another. If the Liberal government really respects workers, will they protect their rights by supporting my bill to remove Section 107 from Canada's Labour Code? Yes or no?
Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, we have significantly strengthened the rights of organized labour in this country, starting in 2015 when the Liberal government repealed union-busting legislation that was presented and passed by those Conservatives. Another untrustworthy move, Mr. Speaker, strengthening the Canadian Labour Code, making scab labour illegal, and investing in union-based training. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to work with labour organizations and businesses to make sure that the relationship remains balanced and productive.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that Donald Trump is erratic and very difficult to deal with. However, the Prime Minister's growing list of concessions and appeasement is clearly not working. The latest sees him offering up the Keystone Pipeline to the Americans and getting nothing in return. This is an uneconomic, environmentally damaging project that directly contradicts his pledge to reduce integration with the U.S. economy. What happened to the Prime Minister who promised Canadians a strong approach to Trump's aggression?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, businesses from all over the world are choosing Canada as a foreign direct investment opportunity. We rank amongst the top 2 countries in the G20 for foreign direct investment. And in fact, contrary to the words on the other side of the aisle, we have inflation coming down. We have the Bank of Canada cutting the benchmark interest rate to 2.5%, Mr. Speaker. We are a free trade agreement with every other G7 country, Mr. Speaker. These are more than just agreements. They are bridges to economic resilience, and we'll keep going hard. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
That ends the question period for this.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Like, it's like Freeland's soul has never left Parliament. Speaking of, where the hell is Freeland? She's gone. Like, she's disappeared. Even though she's stayed on as a MP forcefully by Mark Carney, so that she has 2 jobs. She's gone. Fully poof, gone. Not to ever be seen again. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, that's the end of the video. That's the end of the stream. I won't see you guys for a little while. For a week and a half, right? Because we're not going to stream tomorrow. And next week they're off. So I just want everyone to have a good Thanksgiving. At least everybody who liked the video and subscribed to the channel. Have a good Thanksgiving, which should be an encouragement for you guys to like the video if you haven't yet already and subscribe to the channel so that my wish full of your Thanksgiving could apply. They're off next week. Of course they are. Of course they are. Because Thanksgiving for government means a week, 2-week long vacation, right? They're off next week, so we'll be back the following week. The almost end of October. Let me pull up the exact date. The 20th of October. The 20th of October. I'll see you guys there. See you guys there. Maybe. I don't actually, I've got some stuff going on that week. But we'll see. We'll see. Put a pin in it. I'll stream it. Of course I will. Of course I will. I don't want to miss that. But peace and love, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. I know times are tough. I know it's expensive to get turkey, but try to enjoy your Thanksgiving. Try to enjoy your weekend. Spend it with time. Spend your time with family and friends, and unplug, man. Unplug from the internet. You know, like it wouldn't hurt. I mean, obviously, like watch my videos and subscribe to all the channels and hit the like button on all the videos on all the channels, but try to unplug as well, right? Enjoy your time, decompress for the weekend. Yeah, and see you guys later. Peace and love, everybody. Enjoy your time. Thanks for tuning in today. It means a lot. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. To those who like the video. Happy Thanksgiving. Except liberals.